People ask me, Yak, which camera should I get? And nowadays with all these new cameras coming out, you can pretty much get any of them and you can get some amazing looking results. And mainly because of that reason, I pretty much got bored of cameras since I got the Sony a7 IV. The Sony a7 IV I feel like is like the perfect camera. It does everything I needed to do, and like it's just perfect. Like there's no reason for me to buy another camera, honestly. So because of that reason, I kind of went back, and right here we got the first Sony E-mount camera that they made back in 2010. So we're gonna be taking a look at that, and we got this from KEH. I don't know if my address is on here. I'm gonna have to blur it if it was on here, but we got this from KEH. So we're gonna be taking a look at it. This was bought on the, I think it's like the excellent quality, and I got it for $120. So we're gonna be taking a look at it, see what kind of condition it is. And I opened it up just because I was curious if it actually came in like the original box, but I don't think it did. I think it just comes in like, they just wrap it up in styrofoam, which I'm not a huge fan. It's not styrofoam, it's like bubble, the bubble thing. But here it is. Here we got the camera. So let's open it up. Yes, it's literally just covered up in bubble, and it should be coming with a battery and maybe a battery charger. I'm not too sure, but I own a bunch of other Sony cameras, so I have plenty of batteries and chargers for them. This does use the older, I think it's called the MP F50 battery, so we'll see. But yes, here is the camera. Oh yeah, there it is. Oh my god, so small. Jesus Christ. Okay, so we got this blue package. I'm guessing this is, yeah, this is a battery charger for sure. And then we got the camera right here in two little Ziploc bags. Oh my god. So this is, so when Sony was first making the E-mount cameras, their idea was to compete with the bigger, you know, mirrored cameras. Like back in 2010 and early 2000s, this is what a camera looked like, you know. You had like your Canon 1D cameras with their giant, you know, flapping mirrors on them and everything. And these cameras were huge and heavy. And to combat that, Sony was pretty much like, let's make the smallest camera we can make, which was these Sony E-mount tiny cameras. Oh my god, look at this. And compared to like a modern Sony cameras, like we got the Sony a7R III here. This does have the battery grip on here. So let's take that off just to have a fair comparison. So look at that. Look at that difference. A lot smaller and lighter, you know, compared to those cameras. But obviously this is a full frame camera, and the other one's an APS-C camera. So those away. But yeah, with Sony, when they first came out with the mirrorless cameras, the idea was to let's remove the mirror and make these cameras small as humanly possible. So with this camera, as you can see, it's extremely tiny. It does have a flipping up screen, so that is cool. But yeah, I never held one of these before. But the problem with like smaller cameras is going to be obviously that, you know, it's ergonomically it's not the best. But if you want a nice small walk around camera, this thing is pretty small. So first of all, let's see if there's a battery. There is a battery in here. Look at that. Let's see if there's any charge to it. I honestly don't even know how to turn this thing on. Oh wait, here's a switch on the top. So let's turn it on. Let's see if it boots up. Oh, it did turn on. It has 63% battery. And the beautiful thing about these Sony E-mount cameras is that since it is E-mount, you can use all the newer modern Sony lenses with it. So we can get like a big, you know, lens like this is a 50mm 1.4 lens. And we can attach it to this camera and it should just work, right? And there we go. As you can see, it's saying this is a 1.4 lens. And we can focus with it. And you can take a picture. So, I mean, this lens kind of looks ridiculous on here, considering how much bigger it is. But you can use it, which is so amazing with these cameras, is that, you know, this camera is what, like 13 years old now, and you can still use like your newer, you know, Sony E-mount lenses with it. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go around, we're gonna take some pictures with it, take some video with it, because this camera can do, I believe it can do up to 1080i, it can't do 1080p. So you can get some nice, you know, 1080p interlaced footage with it. So we will be taking a look at that. Let's also look at like some of the I/O with it. So we have On the left side, right here, we have a, I'm guessing a micro USB slot right here. I'm guessing this is for transferring photos. I don't know if you can charge the camera with it, but it's not even a micro USB port. It's a mini USB port, which is very outdated nowadays. You know, so good luck finding a cable with that, and it doesn't come with it, so you would probably have to buy that. Or you might have it left over from some stuff, like if you have like a PlayStation 3, for example, the controller for that does use mini USB. And it does have an HDMI port right here, and obviously it's a micro HDMI to save space. So if you want to, you know, view the videos you took on this, you can view it on there. Let's get some SD card going in here, actually. All right, to put the SD card in, you're gonna have to put it in to the battery slot. So let's turn the camera off first, and then we can insert our SD card in here. This is a UHS 2 SD card, so let's see if it even reads it. And there we go, 999 images. So let's put a lens on here. Let's try this Tamron 17 to 28 millimeter on here so we can get some wider footage. But the thing is that, the funny thing is that this mount is actually bigger than the camera itself. Alright, so right on here, as you can see, we can flip the camera up, which is really cool. But as you can see, this mount is actually bigger than the camera itself, which is pretty forward-thinking considering this APC mount was mainly made for Super 35 lenses. You know, when these cameras first came out, they didn't do full frame until years later, so you know, they obviously had that planned. But let's put the lens back on, and this is a full frame lens we're putting on here. And as you can see, we can select different shoot modes, shutter priority, aperture priority. Let's do shutter priority. Actually, no, let's do aperture priority, since this is a decently fast lens. So we're gonna set our aperture to f2.8, and as you can see, so that's really cool. I'm not really sure what this slot is for. It looks like a micro SD card slot, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Now let's try to take some photos and video with this and see how it looks. Okay. I think it's recording now. We're at 17 millimeter, and this is what it looks like. I don't know how this sounds at all. I don't know if this thing has autofocus. Does it have autofocus? It does have autofocus. I don't know if you can change any of the settings on here, but it does have autofocus, so that's interesting. We are shooting at 17 millimeter at f2.8 full frame terms, so it is actually like what? It's like almost 32 millimeters or something. I don't know. I can't do maths right now. I don't feel like doing maths. But yeah, this is what it looks like. And yeah. So this is what it looks like. This is what it sounds like. And we're obviously going to compare it to my microphone that's plugged in. This camera does not have a microphone plug-in. So if you do want to record audio, you would have to record the audio externally and then sync it in post, which isn't a huge deal. But it would be nice to have some internal microphones also. It does have two microphones on top of the camera right here. I don't know if you guys can see. So it does have some sort of audio. I don't know how well it sounds. We'll find that out in the post. But now let's try going inside. Let's take some pictures and see how the image quality is. So as you can see, the image quality coming out of this camera is really nice. As you can see, even though this is a 14 megapixel camera, if we zoom in right here, you can still get a pretty detailed image. And for most stuff nowadays, especially with stuff like social media or any, you know, web stuff, 14 megapixels is more than enough. As you can see, this is an edited image of the headlights of a car, but this image was actually cropped in a decent amount from this original raw image of the camera, and this is what the image looks like straight out of camera. And with some little bit of editing, as you can see, you can get a really nice looking image. So with this camera, you can get professional looking images with this camera as long as you pair it up with a professional grade lens. Now all these pictures I have taken with the Samyang 24mm 1.8 full frame lens. So we can use full frame lenses with this camera, and you can get, you know, such amazing quality lenses for the Sony, both first party and third party. So make sure to check the description of the video if you are looking for any lenses, because I do have some of my favorites listed on there. But yeah, with this camera you can take some great images. The only caveat I would say is that there's no flash port on the camera, so if you do want to use external flashes with the camera, that's not really going to be possible unless if you buy an external attachment for it. Alright, so my initial thoughts with this camera is going to be that, well, first of all, it's very small and light, so if you're looking for a small APC camera for not a lot of money, I guess for 120 bucks, it's a pretty decent camera. You know, the image quality coming out of it is pretty good. It's a 14 megapixel camera that you can take raw images with, and from the previous images you can see that you can still take like pretty professional looking images. And here I'm gonna compare it to the original A7 camera, the first like professional camera they made. And this is a full frame camera, as you can see. Compared to something like that, it's so small. This is such a tiny camera, which is really cool. And I just need to find like a tiny lens to go with this camera. So if you have any suggestions, make sure to leave it in the comments. Maybe I'll find like a pancake lens or something for this camera and see how it performs with something like that. But the image quality is great. In photography and video, as you guys saw, the image quality isn't that great, unfortunately. The older Sony cameras, they just didn't have good video codecs for them, you know. If you want a good video codec back in those days, you would have to get yourself something like a Sony FS5 or something. Like, this is a camera around those times, you know, back in those times. If you want a good video quality, you had to get a dedicated video camera. So, but again, there's a big difference between using something like this and using something, you know, tiny as this. You know, nowadays you can get great image quality out of, you know, something like this, like the Sony a7R III or any of the newer Sony cameras. Another negative thing about this camera is going to be the autofocus. The older Sony cameras had pretty bad autofocus, so for both video and photo, the autofocus isn't that great. So sometimes you do have to baby it. You gotta like focus multiple times to make sure you get it right, or you gotta just use manual focus. So that's the thing to keep in mind. And also I figured out that this port right here on the top, right here, let me just open it up right here. This port is for adding extensions to the camera, so you can add either audio or flash extensions to it. And I only found like one actual flash that you can attach on top of it, but I also found like a Chinese like adapter, so you can put like actual flashes, like a hot shoe on top of the camera. And that's something I might get in the future and play around with it, but we'll see about that. But anyways, this is just my first thoughts on this camera. Again, this is just my first thoughts on this camera. I will be making more videos. I'm going to be comparing this first Sony Nex camera to Sony's latest a7 IV camera and see, you know, in the span of pretty much what, like 12 years, see how much improvements there has been to the image quality of these cameras. And also I'm going to be doing a video where I'm going to talk about it if it's still worth getting this camera in 2023. But anyways guys, thanks for watching this video. Hopefully it was useful to you. I make videos every single week, you know, it changes here and there depending on how my life is going. But anyways guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you will subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.